Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Paul.
Thank you very much. Lower everything. Okay, you've seen me with a jacket on. My name is Paul Williams. I'm a very grateful recovering alcoholic. And my sponsor, my sobriety date is March 15th. Thank you very much. Have that shortened. I bought it when I was loaded and I thought I was taller. My sobriety date is March 15th, 1990. Living happily in 10, 11, and 12. My home group is Lucky 13 in Sunset Beach, which is down by Costa Mesa. And Mr. Cocaine, I did a lot of blow. You know, I mean, when I was so short, I could run under coffee tables. I loved the way that blow made me feel. You know, made me understand that your wife really wanted me. You know, fantastic. You know what? I know this is an AA meeting, and I know that we're not supposed to talk about drugs, but I got to, because drugs, and you're the one who brought up cocaine. Drugs are how I discovered my faith, because here's what happened. When I got sober, I remember what it was like when I was, you know, because Stolichnaya and cocaine, I had a big nose for a little guy. Stolichnaya and cocaine made me feel like I could shoot basketball for money. It was fantastic, you know. But I remember calling the dealer, and the dealer wouldn't be there, and I'd be like, bitch, what is it? The dealer wouldn't answer. Son of a bitch. Come on. Okay, John, one more time. Oh, son of a bitch. Finally, she answers the phone, hello, and everything changes. It's like you can tell by the way she says hello. It's like, yeah. I go, hi, how are you? She says, I'm fine, and you're going to be fine too. And I go, yeah. And you know, you want me to come over? You go, I'll bring it over to you. And it's like fantastic. All of a sudden, it's like, I'm feeling really good. I'm going to be all right. I don't need that crap. But, you know, I'll do a little. I have a little taste because it's, you know, it's a nice little buzz and all. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I weigh 187. And I'm thinking, you know what? You're a good-looking little stud muffin. You know what? We ought to be doing Guess jeans for Portly Cadets ads, you know. So it's interesting. And then I start using the crap, and as soon as I start using it, then it all goes to hell. Then I'm wired, and then I run out, and wait a minute, she shorted me again, you know. It's like, and I'm down to that last little taste, and then I'm running out of this, and then I'm drunk, you know. And I'm calling I'm going, wait a minute, I got a 5 o'clock appointment. What time is it? And it's 10 to 7. Jesus, well, I'll call them and I'll tell them I had dental work, emergency dental work, you know? Because that's where my drugs and alcohol took me. My drugs and alcohol made me a chronic and habitual liar. A chronic and habitual liar, you know? But and it didn't work. I mean, it worked sometime way back there, but it didn't work after a while. But this is where the spirituality comes in. I realized, and it says in the big book, the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. What I noticed in early sobriety was that when I knew that I was going to get what I thought I needed, I felt fantastic. I felt saved. I felt graceful. I felt good looking. I felt cared for. Everything. And what was I experiencing? I think what I was experiencing was faith. I think I was experiencing the power of faith. And if faith in this crap, this poison, is going to put my life back on track that quickly, imagine what faith in a true loving higher power is going to do for me. So, Mr. Cocaine, I hope you find that higher power. I hope you find the power of faith, because this is the most amazing deal in the world. This is a mystical deal. I don't care. There is more mystical in AA, I believe, than there is in 17 Harry Potter books. It's just, you know, it's just... So anyway, I live down behind the orange curtain too. Actually, I live in Naples Island. Is this bouncing back? Am I talking too loud or too close to the mic, or, is it all right? Thought I better ask now. I'm going to tell the long version of my story tonight. Should hit about 2 hours, but just relax and enjoy yourself. So it's been raining. It was raining like hell when I left the house. And when you drive in Los Angeles and it's been raining, it's amazing. It's a lot of Jeeps in the ivy, if you know what I mean. Everybody gets a little crazy. I speak a lot, and this is being recorded, so I want to say something that may seem arrogant to some of you, but there was a time when people kind of knew who I was, and I if you knew who I used to think I was, you'd be really impressed. But there are a few people out there that know my name because I'm a songwriter and an entertainer, and I just want to say that to anybody listening, every now and then you record something like this and it winds up in the hands of a reporter. And everybody knew I was loaded when I was loaded, and I'm fine with anybody. I'm speaking not to the people in the room, but to whoever is listening to this CD. If you are a reporter and you're listening to this CD, tell everybody that Paul Williams is sober. Please, and so what a nice guy he is, and that he's got a place in heaven because he's doing such wonderful things now. Do not, under any circumstances, put my name next to the words Alcoholics Anonymous. At all, ever, ever. Yeah, because, they want to help. They want to help and everything. So I do this a lot. I speak a lot, and I have a real white bread drunk-a-log. It's just, it's really boring. I get sick of my own story. I want to tell Charlie's story instead. I never came out of a blackout with a Russian arms dealer, or I never came out of a blackout with a bunch of hookers and Norman Mailer in Paris. I'd come out of a blackout in the boys department of Sears. Trying on sweaters. Yeah, no, I was not there for anything other than the clothes. Trust me, Rodeo. I've spoken at Rodeo before, not when it was here. It was the other place. Rodeo is to me the essence of white light and black leather. It's like what it was like, what happened, and what I was wearing. Welcome to Rodeo. And it's the most fantastic thing in the world to see everybody so young. I was 49 years old when I got sober. I didn't have the best childhood, but I had the longest, And I never wanted to, it never occurred to me that I had a problem with alcohol. I had a problem finding it sometimes. I had a problem with finding drugs in it sometimes, But I don't think I turned into an alcoholic until my second rehab. You hear your story here, and you hear somebody young and beautiful telling your same story, and you go, my God, this is, where do you go to find this? That's the amazing thing about AA. You can put a teen and a geezer next to each other. They can actually talk in AA, and the teen will pretend to be interested. It's fantastic, The best part of my life is watching somebody new come alive with this. The best part of my life is that somebody who I saw behind my house walking down the alley about 6 weeks ago, dope sick and throwing up, has got 14 days. And he's talking about, anytime you can hear the words dude and gratitude in the same sentence, you're living in a wonderful altered world, and that's what AA is. It's everything I could ever want in my life. The young lady, I don't remember the name of the young lady. I actually didn't hear it because my hearing is not the best. But I didn't hear your name, but you said you moved to Long Beach or to Orange County when you were 13. So did I. I was a construction brat. I went to 9 different schools by the time I was in the 9th grade. My dad was 6'2". I had 2 brothers, both 6-footers. There is a mild resentment we're working on, and eventually it'll. But I was always really cute, so that was okay, But so I was always the new kid in school, and I was always tiny. I was tiny, and my dad drank. My dad was, I believe, an alcoholic as well. This is a disease of proclamation rather than accusation. This is something that we find out for ourselves, that we are alcoholics. We proclaim it, and thus begins our recovery. For me to say that somebody else is an alcoholic does not have the same impact of me looking at myself in the mirror and going, oh, you sad little man. You're an alcoholic, and you need to get sober. Best thing that ever happened to me. Most powerful words that ever came out of my life. I've made my living writing, and the most powerful thing I ever said was, my name is Paul, and I'm an alcoholic. And when we raise our hands in the room and we do this, it's just, I mean, it's safety. It's something that I was looking for, something I never really felt until I got here. My dad was working in construction, so we were always moving, and he drank. And when he'd come home from school or from work, he'd take me and my brother and he'd say, "You go out and play," and he'd drink with his buddy Mike McShane. And then about 3 in the morning, he'd decide that I should get up and sing for him, for Ike McShane, because I was such a fabulous singer. So I'd get up and sing Danny Boy, who Ike McShane, who was like, just the last thing he wanted is to hear some gnome sing Danny Boy, 3 in the morning, My dad, I talk about my dad in my pitch because there's a key part of my story. My dad drank, and every now and then he wanted to have that bonding family kind of, they didn't call it bonding then, but that father and son thing, And there was one very specific occasion. We were living in Lucasville, Ohio, right where Kentucky and Ohio and West Virginia come together. I was probably 11 years old, maybe 10, 12. And my dad got me up in the middle of the night and he said, "We're going to go see a professional baseball game. We're going to go see the Cleveland Indians play baseball." And so he could put me in the back of his 50 Merc, and his buddy Ike McShane and he were in the front seat passing a bottle back and forth. And he's going, "I see a professional baseball." I'm going, "Dad, don't watch me, watch the road, I remember thinking, it was raining horizontal, it was raining horizontal. The cars all over the road. And I remember thinking that it was my concentration that kept the car on the road. It was me concentrating that kept the car on the road. And, a therapist will have a ball with that. It's almost like there's the birth of grandiosity. Think about it. It's too frightening to think that I'm in this car with my father, who is too drunk to manage it. So I give myself that power. I'll keep the car on the road. I wound up doing the same thing as my dad. He said, "We're going to go to Cleveland and see the Cleveland Indians play baseball." Drove through a blinding rainstorm to Cincinnati. Drove to the wrong city. The Cleveland Indians don't play baseball in Cincinnati, or maybe they do now, but they didn't then. So my dad, we get to the ballpark, and the ballpark's empty. And my dad's like, "Well, we're going to get great seats, I'll tell you that, There was some fabulous seats, We sit there, and after a while, he gets up and he walks to the ticket window, and he realizes what he's done. And what you see is this alcoholic slump. This, just this, Jesus, I did it again slump, And I know that slump. I got that slump, Dan. That's in my bag. I've got that slump. And he came back to the car. He realized we were in the wrong city. And I can see him now. He was wearing brown suit pants, slippers with no back on them, and what we now call a wife beater, to go to the ball game, He came back and he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry, kid, there's not going to be a ball game today, but it's the thought that counts." And I went, damn, some part of me lit up. I went, I get it. I can do that. And for 49 years, I was one of the thoughtiest little creatures you ever ran into. I was, I thought about getting the job done on time. I thought about being faithful to my wife. I thought about voting. I didn't vote. Talk about Meg, what's her name? I didn't vote until I got sober. When I got sober, I found an amazing sponsor who said to me that, don't worry about you, but, it's not the thought. Don't worry about your thinking. Your thinking got you here. Don't worry about your feelings. I would call Jerry, my sponsor, and go, "I'm afraid I'll never be in touch with my feelings." He said, "You stay sober long enough, your feelings will get in touch with you, Paulie, I promise, He said, "What it's about is about your action." And my actions are different today than they were for the 49 years of my life. I'm 20 years sober. How long am I sober? 20 years and 6 months and so many in a couple of weeks. And it's the most amazing gift that I've ever been given. My dad died in a one-car wreck when I was 13, and I moved to Long Beach. It's amazing to hear the stories right before me and to hear mine. There's such a parallel there. And, I go to Long Beach where everybody is healthy and tan. What color I got in the light in my refrigerator, Everybody's tall, and everybody hits puberty at 9 in California. I had a really slow body clock. The most painful thing in the world was first period gym at Rogers Junior High School in Long Beach. Rogers Junior High School, and then Woodrow Wilson High School. Standing in the showers when my body was still the body of a child, and I'm looking around and everybody is developed and everybody's hit puberty, and I'm like, God, I don't care how big you make me, just cover me with fur. Let's try to catch up here. Be careful what you pray for. Be careful. At this day and age of my life, and I'm almost afraid to say my age, but I have hair places I don't need hair. I don't need fur on the top of my ears. They don't get cold. Got a little antenna on the side of the nose that is spectacular. I'll be going out of the house and the wife is like, pluck. Now you're safe to go out. But I moved to Long Beach, and once again, I felt totally isolated. I felt it's exactly what our first speaker was talking about, that feeling that everybody else knew something that I didn't know. Everybody else had that book of instructions that I never had, and you never saw it on my face, and I'm not sure that I even felt it then. I know it now. It's odd. I look back on my life as a kid, and I go, that's a sad story. Paulie, that's a really sad childhood you had. I didn't feel the sadness then. If you wanted to talk to me then, I would have done this. I would have tapped my wrist and said, and pointed like I was busy. I wasn't busy. I just didn't know how to talk to you. If I kept moving, and what came out of my mouth was whatever I had to tell you, even then, to just keep my distance. People scared the hell out of me. I didn't know what the hell to do with people. I didn't have a girlfriend. I wanted one. I was living in a world of belt buckles and bosoms, and I liked the bosoms better right away. I was like, yeah. So what did I do with my life? Is I started writing songs, and I became a songwriter. First I was an actor. I looked like kids, and I played kids. And in my 20s, I played kids that were 14 or 15 years old. I looked like a kid till you put me next to a real kid. Then I looked like a kid with a hangover. Basically, And that all dried up, and that fell apart. I did a couple movies. The phone stopped ringing. Then they took the phone out, and I'm like, and I picked up a guitar, and I started putting the stuff that I was feeling in guitar, and it was the first beginnings of communicating with other people. And I remember the first time I played a song, and a young lady listened to it, and her head went. I went, wow. Did you just go from weird to wonderful? There's something's changed in your life, and I found what I could do. And in the 70s, I wrote a lot of codependent anthems that did pretty good. Basically a lot of ouch mommy songs. Just pick me up and love me. I need you. I need you. And I have a God-shaped hole in the center of my soul. And I've tried so hard to fill it with 1,000 different things. I tried to fill it with relationships, tried to fill it with booze, And this is a progressive disease. The Jellinek study in the 60s found out that we have a disease that is a progressive disease. It's a fatal disease if it's unchecked. It's a primary disease. What that means is that alcoholism and addiction is its own disease. It's not a symptom of any other disease. It's not a symptom of your girlfriend leaving you. It's not a symptom of your wife throwing you out. It's not a symptom of not getting a job. It's its own wonderful gift, and to me, it's a gift. My alcoholism and my addiction were a gift, and I would never have said that until at this point in my life. I've begun to say it more and more as I wander around in sobriety. I look at the 10 years, because there were really about 10 years that I really lost due to my addiction and my alcoholism. And you're an alcoholic when you misplace a decade. Hello, it's like, please, I did really well in the 70s, and the 80s were like, the 80s I wrote the songs for Ishtar, please. That's about, which is the definition of failure in Hollywood and all. But I had some success because I was focused on just that, and along the way my drinking progressed, and I found out I was tall enough to be in the Army, so I lived on amphetamines and dried apricots for a while, and stayed out of the Army, and everything was about finding my success as a songwriter, and so I had 5 degrees of real success, and I had 360 degrees of failure, and along the way, as I began to experience some success, what really blossomed was my grandiosity. What really blossomed was, I'm pretty wonderful. I'm really fabulous. And what happened is a sense of gratitude for the life that I've been given and the success that I had began to flow away. And I drank. And I drank and I used. And I don't know when I crossed the line from use to abuse to addiction, but I did. I had a wonderful wife. I had 2 little kids. And I became the same kind of guy that my dad was. I would drive. I had a home in Santa Barbara, and I had a home in the West Hollywood Hills. And I would go and pick up my kids because I left my wife and my kids when they were very small for a 22-year-old psych major. It seemed like the absolute perfect thing to do. I was in my late 40s and she was 22, and she was, the two of us made one healthy person, her, But so I left my wife and my kids for this woman. I couldn't make it to my house or back with the kids in the car without a drink and a toot. So I became my dad. And I won't do a long drunkalogue about how much I drank or how much blow I used, whatever, but it was excessive. It was excessive. Because the first drink took me out of the room. The first drink took me out of that place where I can have a relationship with my kids. That first drink took me out of the place where I hear, How many of you were a better listener when you were drinking and using? One hand goes up. Were you really? No, I doubt it. Maybe from the inside you were, but from the outside probably not. What I found more and more is that my windshield gets dirty on the inside, so I really need to listen. I need to be aware. But I drove with my kids in the car just like my dad did, only I was clever. I would make them look away so they wouldn't remember me having a toot or a drink. I'd say something like, "Is that cow on fire?" Cow. They make those wires out of snakes, and the kids would look up, and my daughter's getting her master's at Smith, and she's a therapist, and I know there had to have been sessions where she'd say to her therapist, "I'm having dreams about snakes and burning cows. I don't know where it comes from, Yeah, but it's somewhere in the past, and I did it. Anyway, I left my beautiful wife and my beautiful kids for this psych major, who was an amazing lady, and she was honest, and she was brave, and she was brave enough to say to me, "You know what? You're an alcoholic and an addict. You're going to die, and I love you too much to watch you die. So I'm going to leave you if you don't get sober." So I tried to get sober for her. And I went to a place called New Beginnings in Santa Barbara, which is, I went to a place in Santa Barbara called Schick Shadle. Schick Shadle is an aversion therapy place. Anybody know what aversion therapy is? Oh, I'm so glad I get to explain this. You think you had a tough recovery. Aversion therapy, they give you a shot to make you sick. And you get violently ill, and then they take you into a room with a chair and a little bowl on it, and you go, "What's the bowl for?" And they say, "Well, you'll see." And they let you drink. You can drink whatever you want. As a matter of fact, they want you to drink everything: vodka, beer, the works. And then you're sick, and you start vomiting this stuff, and it's just, you think you're going to die. You think you're going to die. There's a little towel that they put in that stuff, put it around your neck, and put you in a room for 3 hours, and you think about whether or not you want another drink, which they're going to find out, because the next day they give you sodium pentothal, which is the truth serum. Thank you for paying attention. Truth serum, and then when you're under the sodium pentothal, they ask you if you want a drink, and if you say yes, then they hit you with some more vomiting the next day. It's really exciting, They said, "Mr. Williams, we're very worried about you." I said, "Why is that?" They said, "Because you're always early for the sodium pentothal." I said, "Yeah, I loved it." It's like that old Art Carney bit, 99, 98, 3, just falling into yourself. I loved that. I loved the way that felt. But I got sober. Well, I had sobriety. I sponsored a guy named Wes in Denver, and he said, "You had sobriety, not sobriety." And so for 7 months, I did not have a drink. For 7 months, I did not have a toot. Didn't go to meetings, didn't have a sponsor, but I was fine. I was just really fine. I went to, I'm sure it was a joy to be around. I went to Jamaica to work on a project, and it was going to be a killer musical, and I was writing a song. I stayed up really late at night writing this song that I knew was going to be this rock and roll anthem. It was going to change the world, and it was like, "I took my place beside you, girl." It was just, finally something. I finally sounded like Boss Skaggs, is who I wanted to sound like, I thought it was wonderful. I got a little bit of sleep. I got up and I listened to what I'd done, and I realized that I had rewritten "O Little Town of Bethlehem," And it was just, at that moment, a guy walks by. I was at a beautiful pool in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and a guy walks by with a little tray and the sparkly glasses and the drinks, and he said, "Mr. Williams, would you like something to drink? Perhaps a rum and coke?" And I went, "Rum and coke? I'm the Paul Williams. My mind, you know, I haven't had a drink for 7 months. I can handle one rum and coke. So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, I had one rum and coke. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I was at Bob Marley's grave explaining reggae to a lot of black people I didn't know. Just, you know, yeah. Well, it's about the backbeat. It's about you're just often lying, often flying, often lying. Just, you know, lying through my teeth, trying to invent somebody as I'm going along that is who I think they want me to be, or who I need to be to impress them, because at some level being me is not enough. Some level being me is not enough, you know, but I had that first one, and you know, if you think willpower is going to do anything for you, that's what willpower did for me. Is within 2 days, I was back exactly where I was before. And the young lady that lived with me was very, very cool. She said, she watched for a while, and then eventually she said, you know what, I think you're drinking again. I went, you think I'm drinking again? You were so shattered. You were so broken. What did your father do to you? You have a lot of issues with men, don't you? And you know, when we're trying to hide our medicine, you can't take my medicine away. And you know what? I rise up in my addiction, and I am powerful, and I am nasty, and I don't care how much I'm hurting you, because this is something that I need now. Now that it's in my system, this is what I need. There's the phenomena of craving. I know that this is, you know, this is how I cope with life. It worked once. It'll work again if I get just the right combination again, and I will say anything I need to keep you your distance while I drink and use. And you know what? At the same time that is happening, I'm sitting next to myself going, what's wrong with you? You are such an ass. You love her. You're such an ass. What's wrong with you? But I couldn't help myself. You know, and eventually she would go to bed wondering. She would go to bed doubting herself, you know, because we do that. You know, we're that powerful. God bless you, Al-Anons. If you're here, it's just, I'll give you the Al-Anon salute, please. It's just, we do such, you must have seen that before, the Al-Anon handshake. Don't you have it, you know, yeah. But she'd go to bed and she'd doubt herself. She'd go, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe he's not drinking. And I would sneak out the puppy door and score more booze and blow. We had a really squeaky front door, you know. And when you've been up like 2 days and nights, it's like sounds. You know, you've been up so long that doorknobs scare you. You know, it's just like, you know, oh my God, what was that? Get it off me. You know, and so eventually she was gone. She was gone, and I'm crawling out the puppy door to get more booze while she's up there. You know? And I was left to my addiction. And what happened is I went to Nashville, Tennessee I went to Oklahoma City to play a gig at a university in the afternoon. And I had been up a couple days and nights, and I was taking a little bit of Antabuse to try to get her back, just, you know, but I found that if I took just a small enough, if I kind of just ate a third of it, and I could do a little blow and have a couple drinks, and everything was just, so I'd been up 2 or 3 days, and I went to do this gig. And walking out of the suite at the hotel with the promoter at the gig, I had a full-blown psychotic episode. I mean, full-blown psychotic episode. I saw monsters that weren't there. I was thrown down escalator stairs by something that wasn't there. I could feel my ears being twisted and pinched. And the promoter is like, you know, oh my God, what have I done? You know, he's got this insane person. And we canceled the gig. I actually did it the next day. We told the audience, I had my drummer go out and tell the audience that I'd had a reaction to my meds, you know, which was true. I'd had a reaction to my meds. It was true. This is my meds. I need this stuff. You don't understand. Anyway, I did the gig the next day. I went back to LA, and I kept drinking for about 2 more weeks. And I don't know if it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but it was around that time, in a blackout, I called a doctor. And I called a doctor and said, I can't do this anymore. I got to get sober. And he called me back the next day, which was a Saturday. And he said, I found a place for you. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you called me last night, and you said you wanted to get sober. And I went, somebody's been using my body again. This has got to stop, you know. And then I had, you know, there's that moment of clarity that we're all thankful for later. There was that moment where something happened, and I threw in the towel. something happened and I went, I can't do that anymore. I need to get sober. I don't know where the desire to call, I don't know why I called the guy. I have no idea. I have no idea, but I did it. Well, I do now, but I didn't at the time. So I went to a place called New Beginnings, and I was given the grace of the 12 steps. And my mind is so weird because I'm sitting out there and I go, there are 12 letters in Beverly Hills. And I got sober in Beverly Hills. Wow. Meaning something? No, that's what I was like then. I also designed roller coasters that would kill you if you tried to ride it. Bizarre things. But I went to New Beginnings and I was given this amazing gift. I was given the fellowship, was given the steps, and I got a sponsor. His name was Jerry Hunter. He died when he had 37 years. He was a little guy, looked like Yosemite Sam. Tiny guy, rode a great big full dress Harley, and he used to go from toe to toe because he couldn't quite reach the ground. And called me up. He says, "How you treating the world today, Paulie?" I said, "Well, haven't you had a slip of the tongue? Don't you mean how's the world treating me?" And he said, No, Paulie, I don't give a rat's ass how the world's treating you." He said, "Well, fact is, I love you, and I want you to be happy, so I do care how they treat you." But he said, "I can't do anything about that." He said, "I'm not sure you can either, except for one thing. If you are spiritually vigilant, if you monitor the way you treat other people, I promise you that everything in your life will get better." And Jerry, who I feel right here, absolutely right. Everything in my life got better. In rehab, I came face to face with that feeling that you all knew something. I didn't know the phrase, "I want what you've got," but I felt that. I felt that, I could see people start to light up. I could see that look of gratitude and all, and I had the feeling that there was something that I should see that I didn't know what it was. And I prayed about my addiction for the first time. I prayed about my alcoholism. I said, "God, there's something I've never seen that you have to show me." And I was pushy. I was demanding of my higher power. I was saying, "There's something I don't know, and you have to let me see it because I can't do it anymore. I don't want to crawl out the puppy door. I don't want to drive with my kids in the car. I don't want to cause wrecks that injure young girls because I did that too. Don't want to lie. Don't want to screw up other people's lives. So there's something that I've never seen, and you've got to show it to me." And I grabbed a piece. This was as I was sitting down to do my first step, which is basically your drug history, right? Grabbed a piece of paper. I thought it was blank, and I noticed something written on the other side. And I turned it over for the first time in my life. I read the words, "God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always." And that's the third step prayer. We know that. But there was something in the phrase bondage of self that I just, I'm not one of those guys that did a 9 step to myself first. It's like, I forgive you for screwing up, Paulie. It's not what I was talking about. What I'm talking about is when I saw the phrase bondage of self, I realized that I'd been kidnapped by the substance. I'd been kidnapped by the drinking and the using. That when we stay in the fear and we're honest, we get the rewards. I try to tell somebody what it's like to be an alcoholic. When they don't understand, and I'll ask them sometimes, "Do you ever get a phone call in the middle of the night and somebody asks you, 'Did I wake you?' What do you say?" And they go, "Well, usually I say, 'No, you didn't.' I said, 'Why do you lie?' They go, 'I don't know.' I said, 'I don't know why I'm an alcoholic.' But there's that something in me that part of you that lies, and you don't know why. There's that part of me that if I didn't have this program, that's where I go to. If I'm drinking and using, that's where I go to. I say what I think you want to hear. And it's a horrific way to live. It's exhausting explaining things you know nothing about. I mean, it's exhausting. So I was given this new life, and I was on fire with it. All I wanted to be was around sober people. It was for the first time in my life, and this whole rigorous honesty thing became this road out of hell was all about rigorous honesty. And so I would turn to absolute strangers at parties and say, "You know what? I have no social skills." You go, What? I have no social skills. I can't do this. I couldn't dance if I wanted to. And they, well, yeah, you know what? You look like you're having a good time. And I go, I do. And all of a sudden I'd feel better. Because instead of trying to hide what was going on, I turned to somebody and I got honest. And all of a sudden I caught myself saying things like, I don't know. Somebody'd ask me something and I'd say, I don't know. And that was not me. That was not me. That's not the kind of person I was. I wanted to be around recovery all the time. I did something probably no other alcoholic has ever done. I went to UCLA and I got my certification as a drug and alcohol counselor, probably the only one to ever do it. And I entered into what I refer to as the poly-lama period of my life. A river to my people. I was running around. I mean, it was just all I wanted to do was give this thing away. And it was fabulous. I'd walk into a hospital room. I worked for the Musicians Assistance Program at the time, and musicians are usually over-medicated and underinsured, so we would put them in a hospital bed, and I'd wander in there just full of self, like, hey, I'm Paul, and I'm your counselor. And they'd go, no, you're not. You're little Lena's from Smokey and the Bandit, and it's happening again. You go, no, I'm not. No, I am the Paul Williams, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm your counselor, and blah, 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 whatever. But it was, and I don't know, I know of one life I saved for sure. I know of one grateful little life that just has just unfolded in a way that I couldn't have imagined it. And, and I go to a meeting, and I'm not the healthiest person in the world when I show up in a meeting. I just, sometimes on the drive over, this nasty little person shows up, and I sit at a meeting, and I watch this spectacular thing that happens to us. We sit down, and Lucky 13, where we meet in Sunset Beach, is right on the beach, on the sand. And the porpoises going by are our primary porpoises. So you sit there, and like somebody will sit down, and you're sitting in a circle, and I'm like, you're gonna hear about our cat again. I'm like, God, is she ever gonna let the kid get a sober on his over? Just this nasty little, crazy little person is sitting there, and something begins to happen. Something begins to change, and the venom kind of begins to get a little diluted. And I start feeling safe, and all of a sudden then something will happen, like a guy will say, it's going to be back here. I haven't been here in a few months. It's great. I've got almost 2 years now, and I can't do this anymore. I got to be honest. And he says, I've got 3 days, maybe 2, and something happens in that circle that I don't know how to even tell people about. That amazing mystic thing, when you see somebody just being honest and reaching out, and all of a sudden I feel like the most blessed person in the world. I don't know where you go in the world to see that kind of honesty, or to get that kind of honesty. That's special. That's unique. And then to know that this guy has trusted us in that circle to now participate in his recovery. And it's just, I never felt that. I was scared to death. And I'd play against it. I had really long blonde hair back in the 70s, because I thought I looked like a girl, so I was like, screw it, grew the long hair, But to find that, to be in a room and to witness that, to watch somebody who was going to, was drug sick in the alley, all of a sudden talking about gratitude, dude, it's just, my God, it's spectacular. I was like 10 years sober, maybe 10 years sober when I went to Nashville to write, and Nashville's an amazing city. If you've never been there, you got to go there. It's the only city in the world where you can go to a 5-star restaurant and order escargot and gravy. It's just a spectacular place Nashville is. But I went there to write. I was 10 years sober. And I went out to speak at the prison. And when I go to, I love AA. And there's this, if you get nothing else out of this deal tonight, I hope you'll get how much I love AA. But I just, and I get out and I tell my story, and I'm leaving the prison, and as you hear that door, sort of the gate slam behind you, and the locks slide over. And it's, if I was in prison for 3 days, I'd come out in high heels. I know that. I just, was just so grateful to not be in there. Thank you, God, for getting me out, There's some great recovery. If you get a chance to do H&I, it's amazing. But I was in Nashville. I spoke at the prison. I was there writing songs. I spoke at the prison. I went back to my hotel, and my hotel key is one of those magnetic keys. And for the third day in a row, the goddamn key won't work. You know, and it's like I was walking up and down that hallway. I was like a combination of Jiminy Cricket and Gandhi, you know, and then the key won't work, and it's a quick trip from Gandhi to Himmler for me. I'm just like, son of a... So I go, but I've learned, I go down to the lobby, but I've learned in the rooms, restraint of pen and tongue. I've learned restraint of pen and tongue. And I go to the guy and I say, look, I don't know why I need to be down here. I don't know what in the world it is that you think I need to see, but my key's not working again. And at that point, there's a tap on my shoulder, and the lobby is full of guys wearing badges, and it's a convention of talent buyers, guys that book fairgrounds and performing arts centers and nightclubs, whatever. But this guy just came up to me and he said, I just wanted to say hi to you. I booked you a few years ago his name was Gary, and his thing said Oklahoma City. And I went, Oklahoma City? Wow, Oklahoma City. Are you the guy when lick me, when I did my Linda Blair, you know, my exorcist thing? And he said, yeah, that was me. And I went, well, I'm 10 years sober now, and I just spoke at the hospital, or I'm at the jail, and I'm a certified alcohol, blah, 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 poly this, poly that, poly this, poly that. And he said, yeah, I heard in the rooms you were sober. And I went, wow, you heard in the rooms you were sober. That means that you're an alcoholic too. That means just being around me turned you into an alcoholic as well. And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a chip for 17 years. And I did the math, and I went, oh my God, you were 7 years sober when that happened. He said, that's right. I said, well, what'd you do? He said, what'd you think? He said, I've never seen anybody so sick and so sad. You know, you were just the saddest little guy. He said, I thought you were going to die. Scared me to death. I said, what'd you do? He said, I called my sponsor. I went, of course you called your sponsor. He called his sponsor. I said, what'd your sponsor tell you to do? He said, I'll tell you exactly what we did. So what we did is we got together a prayer circle for you of alcoholics in Oklahoma City to pray for you. And we prayed for you. We prayed for you several times. And in a blackout, a couple of weeks later, I called a doctor and said I wanted to get sober. And it's just, at that moment, you know, Bill Wilson talks about this psychic change and the white light experience and all when he was brand new. For me, it was at 10 years sober, all of a sudden I realized that my whole sobriety was a gift. I have 1 minute left? Wow, thank you. Oh my God, I was thinking I had another half hour to go. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to do a little longer today, you know. Thank you so much. But all of a sudden it became an absolute gift. My recovery became an absolute gift. That this is not something that I'd really worked for, no matter what I did, that it was a gift. And you know what, I will get off really quickly, but I'll tell you, which is not something I could ever do on cocaine, but I'll leave you with my 3 prayers. I'll tell you that there are 3 prayers that I live my life by today, and I have an amazing life. I've got a great job in music, and I live by 3 prayers, and I'll leave them with you. First of all, I say, surprise me, God. That's a morning prayer that implies complete trust. If we do this one day at a time, Mr. Cocaine, if we do this one day at a time, then every day is our birthday. So surprise me, God, is my prayer. My second prayer is lead me where you need me. Because if you are led where you're needed, you're not going to just find a place where you can be of service, but you're probably going to find elements of your life that you cannot even imagine how wonderful they are. I've been led to an amazing lady, a relationship with my kids, a life that I couldn't have imagined. And the last thing is thank you, Father, or Mother, or Spirit, or whatever you want to call the big amigo. I call him the big amigo. It's an amazing life. It's a wonderful life. Thanks for paying this 12-step call on me tonight.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.